Welcome to the Elder Darkness. Tonight we descend into the hushed halls of Eregion, where golden forges burn with pride and betrayal waits, cloaked in friendship. Starlight glimmers on elven spires, songs echo from terraces carved into living stone, and beneath it all, quietly, something dark stirs. You can almost hear the whisper of a stranger's footsteps, too smooth, too perfect, threading between hammer strikes and harp chords. Of course, you probably won't survive this. Before we begin our journey through Middle-earth, I invite you to like this video and subscribe if you're drawn to the deep and ancient lore of this timeless realm. And if you're still awake by the end, post your location and local time in the comments. We love seeing how far this tale reaches. Now, lie back and relax as we travel to the world of Middle-earth. A gift from Annatar. Sauron, cloaked as the benevolent Annatar, gains the trust of the elves and aids in the forging of the Rings of Power. The tale begins with a name, Annatar, Lord of Gifts. To the Elves of Eregion, master-smiths led by Celebrimbor, the grandson of Fëanor. He appears as a radiant figure from the west, offering friendship and unmatched wisdom in the arts of craft and power. He teaches them techniques beyond their knowing, guiding their hands as they forge wonders from silver, gold, and starglass. No one questions how this mysterious Maya knows so much about the secrets of the world. Why would they? He wears a smile sharper than any blade. Together, they create the Rings of Power. Not one, not two, but 19 rings. Delicate, terrible, beautiful things. Among them are the 3 Elven Rings, Vilya, Nenya, and Narya, crafted alone by Celebrimbor, untouched by Annatar's hand. These rings are made with care and love, vessels of preservation and healing. But the others, they are not so pure. Middle-earth historians still debate whether Celebrimbor ever truly trusted Annatar. Some say the Elf Lord suspected something was off but was too proud to turn back. Others believe he was wholly deceived, blinded by his dream of restoring elven greatness in Middle-earth, far from the undying lands they had abandoned. Either way, the truth was cruel. Far away in secret, in the volcanic heart of Mordor, Annatar sheds his disguise. There, in the molten bowels of Mount Doom, he forges the One Ring. It is not beautiful. It is terrible, plain to look at, but stitched with dominance, designed to bind all other rings of power to his will. It hums with malice, sings with greed. And when Sauron, for that is his true name, slips it onto his finger for the first time, the elves feel it. Across Eregion, a chill spreads. Those who wore the rings, the dwarves, the men, the wise among the elves, they stagger. Celebrimbor rips the 3 from their holders and hides them. The elves will not be puppets. Sauron is furious. He demands that the rings be returned. He declares the elves traitors. And thus begins the War of the Elves and Sauron. A war not of mere swords, but of shattered trust, crumbling kingdoms, and power that was never meant to be shared. In the far future, when Frodo the Hobbit carries that very same One Ring into Mordor, it is not only the weight of the present he bears. It is this betrayal, this war. The ghosts of Eregion whisper behind every step he takes. Here's a curious detail you don't usually hear. One of Sauron's early spies during this period was a talking raven sent to spy on Lindon. It didn't last long. Elrond's people shot it out of the sky. But it proved a point. Sauron's eyes were everywhere, and he would use any trick, even feathered ones. The elves of Lindon under Gil-galad begin to prepare. Rivendell is founded as a hidden refuge, not yet the peaceful sanctuary it becomes in the Third Age. Back then, It's more like a forward operating base, stocked with blades, bows, and bitter resolve. Meanwhile, in distant realms, other things begin to stir. In the mines of Khazad-dûm, dwarves who had worn the rings begin to dig deeper, richer, hungrier. They do not fall to Sauron's will, but something changes in them. Even centuries later, when Balin leads his doomed expedition into Moria, that ancient hunger clings to the stones like damp moss. And while the main gears of war are turning, a quieter debate echoes through the halls of Valinor. Why did the Vala not intervene? Why allow Sauron to deceive so many for so long? Some say it was to let the children of Iluvatar chart their own path. Others whisper that the Vala feared the second fall, another rebellion born of too much interference. It remains one of the great mysteries, and like all good mysteries in Middle-earth, it's the silence that weighs most. So the elves gather. The rings are hidden, the masks are off, and Eregion, once a realm of music, invention, and light, prepares for the dark tide coming from Mordor. The world will never be the same, and Sauron, he smiles still. The mask falls, the forging of the One Ring unveils Sauron's deception. The elves resist, and the first sparks of war ignite across Eregion. It begins with thunder not from the sky, but from the east. Black banners ripple over jagged hills as Sauron's forces pour from Mordor like spilled ink. Orcs, twisted beasts, and mortal men bent by promises of power. His new army is vast and hungry, and at its head, armored in malice and bearing the One Ring, walks Sauron himself. Gone is the soft-spoken Annatar. What strides forth now is the Lord of Gifts unmasked, and he brings war. The first to fall are the outer settlements of Eregion, elven villas and watchtowers set among silver-leafed groves. Their destruction is swift. Fire takes the trees. Statues carved in the likeness of Valinor stars are toppled. The air, once alive with harp song and forge music, now groans beneath the weight of smoke. In Ostenedhill, the heart of Eregion, Celebrimbor rallies his people. He sends messengers west to Lindon, begging Gil-galad for aid. Another is dispatched northeast, to Khazad-dûm, seeking refuge in the mountain kingdom of the dwarves. Time is short. Sauron's host moves fast. Now here's where things get prickly. Dwarves and elves, historically, don't mix well. But Khazad-dûm answers, perhaps out of ancient friendship with Celebrimbor, or maybe because they dislike Sauron even more than they dislike elves. Either way, when the hammer falls, dwarven warriors surge from the mountain gates like stone-born wrath, helping secure Celebrimbor's retreat toward the city's inner defenses. Still, it's not enough. Sauron's goal isn't conquest. It's retrieval. He wants the rings. All of them. But the three Vilya, Nenya, Narya have already vanished from Eregion, hidden beyond his reach. So he turns his fury on Ostenedhill itself. Siege engines are rolled forward. Trolls batter the gates. And within, Celebrimbor prepares for the unthinkable. He orders the other rings, those lesser ones forged under Annatar's guidance, to be locked away in secret vaults. Some historians believe that the 9 rings given to men were already stolen by this point. Others argue Sauron claimed them during this very siege, prying them from Celebrimbor's dead fingers. The records, like many in Middle-earth, are smoky at best. What we do know is that the elves cannot hold. Ostenedhill falls. Celebrimbor does not flee. He chooses to remain behind, to guard the last secrets of the forge. Some say he hoped the dwarves would open a path beneath the city. Others believe he intended to destroy the rings altogether. Either way, Sauron reaches him first. The torture is not brief. And though we'll spare the more brutal details, PG-13 and all that, it's enough to say this. Celebrimbor is broken. His knowledge, his body, his legacy. Sauron hangs his corpse from the city's ramparts like a banner, a cruel signal to all the free peoples. I have come, and I take what is mine. And yet, this is where the elves begin to win. While Sauron scours the ruins, searching for hidden rings, Elrond arrives with reinforcements from Lindon, the young herald of Gil-galad, who one day will welcome hobbits into Rivendell with poetry and fruit trays, now rides at the head of a host with blade and fire. They don't come to retake Eregion. That would be madness. They come to extract survivors. Elrond leads a retreat north into the foothills, establishing a hidden refuge that will become Imladris, Rivendell, the last homely house. At this point, it's more of a desperate refugee camp than a stately hall. But even then, the valley's magic begins to take root. Sauron sends forces to find it and fails. Even the eye cannot see what Elrond veils in starlight. A quiet moment now. One old tale speaks of a lone elf, half-blind and wounded, escaping through a tunnel with nothing but a scrap of parchment tied around his wrist. It held the last record of the secret alloy used to forge the Three Rings, a recipe never written twice. That elf later dies in Rivendell, but the knowledge lives on. Meanwhile, the other kingdoms stir. Galadriel, who had warned against Annatar's honeyed words from the beginning, begins to rally Lothlorien's protectors. And in Numenor, the mighty island realm of men, rumors begin to spread about a dark power rising on the mainland. Even the forests listen. In Fangorn, the Ents feel the shift. The trees begin to move, slowly but not aimlessly. Here's an oddity. During this war, the river Saranen, once flowing brightly near the western doors of Khazad-dûm, begins to dry up. Some say it was redirected by the dwarves to flood passages during the siege. Others whisper that Sauron's presence poisoned its source. Either way, by the Third Age, it becomes a stagnant pool, perfect for a tentacled surprise. Two echoes from the future drift back to this era like distant thunder. First, the breaking of the fellowship beneath Moria begins here, in the grudges sown between dwarves and elves as Eregion falls. Second, the eventual fall of Isildur, bearer of the One Ring, starts here as well. With the very forging of the ring he will one day refuse to destroy. And still Sauron presses on. His armies sweep toward the western coast. He does not yet fear defeat. He believes himself unstoppable. But the west is watching. Gil-galad, High King of the Noldor, has seen enough. The stage is set for something far greater than war. Fall of Eregion. Celebrimbor makes his last stand. The city burns, and the surviving elves scatter. Sauron seizes the lesser rings and marches west. Gil-galad does not delay. From the gray shores of Lindon, the High King gathers the remnants of his strength. Tall are the towers of Mithland, and somber is the sea, but no lament sounds as Gil-galad dons his armor, a radiant thing of gold and silver, etched with stars. He sends word east and south, across mountains and rivers, summoning allies to a cause none can ignore. Sauron controls most of Eriador now. The green heart of Middle-earth blackens beneath his tread. But still, he is not satisfied. With the elves scattered and Celebrimbor dead, he grows bolder. He dares to turn his eye toward Lindon itself. He forgets, perhaps, that the Eldar do not bend easily, or that they are not alone. For out of the west comes a sound like thunder across the sea. Ships from Numenor arrive, great vessels that dwarf any craft in Middle-earth. Towering sails catch the wind, and at their helms are men tall and grim-eyed, heirs of Elros, brother of Elrond, descended from both elf and man. The Númenóreans bring not only strength of arms, but knowledge. They know of Sauron, though not yet of the One Ring. They have watched from afar and now act with fire in their hearts. One of their captains, Celebrimbor, leads the charge at the Gwathlo River, and there, in a crushing blow, Sauron suffers his first true defeat. Caught between elven hosts and Númenórean landing forces, his armies are driven back. Not destroyed, no, but scattered. Sauron himself barely escapes, slinking back eastward, licking wounds he never thought he'd receive. His arrogance dims, though it does not die. In the smoldering ruins of Eregion, Gil-galad orders the cleansing of the land. He knows it cannot be reclaimed fully, not after what has been done. But he will not let it fester either. Seeds are planted, trees blessed. A quiet pact forms between the elves and the few dwarves who remain nearby, to guard what was lost, to remember what should never be repeated. And yet, even in defeat, Sauron's touch lingers. The 9 rings, those given to men, are now in his grasp. Slowly, over decades, he begins to distribute them, not as gifts but as traps. Each ring whispers promises. Each one binds its bearer tighter. And in time, they will become the Nazgul, the Ringwraiths, the very shadows that chase Frodo across the fields of Eriador. At this point in the Second Age, Rivendell becomes more than a refuge. Elrond fortifies it, both with magic and steel. Gil-galad entrusts him with Vilya, the mightiest of the 3 rings. Galadriel in Lorien now bears Nenya, and the last, Narya, is passed, curiously, to a wandering Maya named Olorin. You know him better as Gandalf. Middle-earth historians still debate when exactly Gandalf received Narya. Some place it centuries later, during the fading years of Gil-galad's rule. Others claim it happened here, amid the ashes of the Elven War, a quiet act of hope amid so much ruin. We may never know. Here's something quirky. In one lesser-known Elvish poem about this war, there's a reference to talking fireflies that were said to have warned the people of Lindon about Sauron's movements near the River Lun. Most scholars consider it poetic nonsense. Still, the elves do have a thing for sentient nature. As the land breathes between battles, a few strange alliances begin to form. In the distant north, the remnants of scattered elven clans seek shelter with the Beornings and Woodmen, ancestors of the folk who will one day aid Bilbo. In the south, whispers of unrest stir among men, some still loyal to Sauron, others merely waiting for a banner to follow. And from the east, beyond even Mordor, rumors grow of strange movements among the Easterlings. Sauron may have lost this round, but he is not idle. His web extends far beyond the battlefield. He begins to seed cults, forge secret pacts, and plan not just a return, but a transformation. Let's not forget 2 callbacks from the Third Age. First, remember when Aragorn says that the shadow takes another shape? That begins here. Sauron learns the value of stealth, of subterfuge. He learns not to come in armor, but in whispers. Second, Gollum's obsession with master and precious finds its roots not just in the ring, but in the psychology Sauron wields so well. He doesn't just forge weapons, he forges minds. As the dust settles, Gil-galad knows this is not the end. It is only a pause. The elves have been humbled. The dwarves have pulled back into their halls. Númenor, powerful but distant, will not stay involved forever. A deeper alliance is needed, one that binds elves and men, not just in convenience, but in conviction. And so he begins to speak with the king of Numenor, not with ships, not with armies, but with vision. Together they must form something new, a last alliance. The last alliance forms. With Eregion fallen, elves and men rally together. Amid ruin and rage, a coalition begins to rise that will shape the Second Age. The shadows never retreat for long. Though the fires of Eregion have died, the ashes smolder with memory. In the east, behind the mountains of shadow, Sauron is rebuilding. The blow dealt by the Númenóreans has wounded his pride, but not slain his purpose. In Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower rises higher. His servants multiply, and the Nine, those men who accepted his rings, begin to fade from the world of light. Meanwhile, in the west, something rare and fragile is forming. Unity. Gil-galad, High King of the Elves, begins secret talks with Elendil of Numenor, a tall, stern man whose name will echo for millennia. Elendil's people are the faithful Númenóreans who never turned their backs on the Vala or the Elves. And when Numenor falls to ruin, as it soon will, it is Elendil who will survive, sailing east with his sons Isildur and Anarion, to found the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor. But here, in the quiet years after the War of the Elves and Sauron, these two great leaders, elf and man, forge something more than treaties. They forge trust, and not a moment too soon, because Sauron, ever cunning, sets his sights on Numenor itself. He allows himself to be captured, charming the prideful king Eir-Pharazôn with sweet words and lies. Within a few short years, the Dark Lord is not a prisoner, he's an advisor, priest, and soon after, the architect of the island's downfall. When Numenor is swallowed by the sea, its white towers crumbling beneath the waves, Sauron's body is destroyed, but his spirit survives. It returns to Middle-earth, weaker, but more hateful than ever. And now he no longer hides behind masks. The time for guile is over. He returns to Mordor. He reforges Barad-dûr. He dons the One Ring once more. And from the ruin of the west arises the only force strong enough to stop him. The last alliance of elves and men is born. Elendil and Gil-galad march side by side, their hosts vast and gleaming. Across the plains of Gorgoroth, they lay siege to Barad-dûr for 7 long years. It is a war unlike any before. Orcs swarm like locusts, the Nazgûl ride, cloaked in death. But the alliance holds. In the final battle, Sauron himself emerges, wielding the One Ring, cutting down warriors like wheat. Gil-galad and Elendil both fall. But Isildur, son of Elendil, seizes the broken hilt of his father's sword and, yes, here it comes, cuts the ring from Sauron's hand. You've heard this part, but remember, this victory is only possible because of the first betrayal, long ago, when Annatar's mask slipped and the elves rose in fury. Middle-earth historians still debate what would have happened if the elves had destroyed all the rings after Celebrimbor's death. Would Sauron have fallen sooner? Or would he have created something even worse, unbound by the power of the others? We'll never know. And here's a final quirk for you. One legend tells that, after the fall of Sauron, a tiny sliver of mithril was found buried near the ruins of Eregion, singing faintly in the moonlight. Some say it was a leftover fragment of the Three Rings creation, still echoing the music of the Ainur. Others believe it's just poetic fluff. Either way, it's a beautiful image, isn't it? Of course, Isildur does not destroy the ring. That failure, his weakness, becomes the seed of everything to come. Gollum, the Nazgûl's return, Frodo's long road to Mordor. But even then, the elves remember. Galadriel clutches Nenya. Elrond watches and waits. They know that the first betrayal was not the end of Sauron. It was his beginning. But it was also theirs. And in that knowledge they prepare. Because the darkness is patient. But so are the wise. The fire has burned low now. The war cries have faded, lost among the rolling hills of memory. Only soft winds remain, stirring through the trees of linden, brushing across the forgotten stones of Eregion. The last embers of that ancient war drift skyward, quiet and golden. Rest now in the cool silence of Rivendell's valley. Hear the gentle fall of water over stone, a lullaby to lull warriors and wanderers alike. Elrond sits in his study, gazing eastward with unreadable eyes, his heart still touched by loss, yet held firm by hope. Galadriel moves beneath the golden boughs of Lothlorien, her footsteps light, her purpose ageless. They remember so that you don't have to. They carry the burden so you may dream. Above, the stars will slowly over Middle-earth, unchanged by wars or kings. They shine on old battlefields and fresh green fields alike. They shine on hobbit holes, on ancient towers, and on the long road that winds ever onward. Let the shadows slip away for now. Let the past grow soft around the edges, like the pages of a well-loved book. The first betrayal is far behind us. The ring is still lost. The world waits, poised between darkness and dawn. You've walked far tonight across time and tale. Let your breath steady, your limbs sink into stillness, your thoughts melt into stars. Sleep, traveler of lore. Sleep deep beneath the songs of elves and the watch of the west.